Hello, I'm Oral and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. My guest, man, he's not a stranger. Been here many times before. This is a young man that basically done everything you can think about. The one and only Mr. Stuart Johnson. How you doing, sir?
I'm very good, and you, Oral. It's always a pleasure being here on Oral Gibbs Live. You know, it's one of our signature national longest running programs on St. Martin. And, you know, you make broadcasting look easy because you've done it for so long and you're the expert in the field. So it's always wonderful to be here. It feels like home. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Always good having you on the program. I was saying before we started to you, it's amazing. I've been interviewing you from a very young guy.
Correct.
I mean, you're still young. You're not 50 yet.
No, not even 40 yet.
Exactly.
The 40 timeline is coming quickly though, but we've had many interviews indeed.
Yeah. So how things going with you so far?
Very busy. You know, I'm president of the Teachers Union, so that has been keeping me extremely busy the last 2.5 years.
That fast? The time has gone already?
Time has gone very quickly. You know, since November 2021 is when I became president of the Teachers Union, and that time has gone so quickly. So early next year will be re-election. I'm going up for re-election as the Witu president. So we're going to do that probably somewhere around the first months into the year, so January, February. The board actually has a 3-year time period, and so it was extended to the maximum, considering that we've done a lot of work, a lot of things have happened over the last 2 years, so the board extended it to its maximum, seeing the confidence that they have in me and we have in each other.
Wow, so it's amazing. I can't imagine that time has gone that fast.
And you know, the story behind that is I actually was postulating just to be a member of the board. I said, you know, let me postulate myself, let me see what it is in the union world. And when the members heard it, my phone literally rang off the hook and they said, no, but you have to be the president. And I said to the teachers, I said, but you all are absolutely crazy. I can't go against Miss Elshot. I don't know a thing about unionism. They said, no, you have the ability to do so. And with the confidence that was entrusted in me, I took a leap of faith, and I say I have no regrets whatsoever. It was a quick learning curve, because shortly after becoming president in November, in February of 2022, I flew to St. Kitts. And in St. Kitts then, it was at the Caribbean Union's Conference of Teachers, and I was approached, and they said, you have to be the vice president of the... I said, but you guys are absolutely crazy as well, because I'm still getting my feet wet in St. Martin. I have no clue what I'm doing still. I'm still getting in the swing of things. And there and again, I called the board back home, and they said, no, you should be it. And I was elected then, and then re-elected this past July, for the position. Out of 110 delegates, I received 94 votes from different Caribbean unions, regional bodies. So very appreciative of that confidence to re-elect me to the position. And the work continues in unionism.
It's amazing because the Windward Islands Teachers Union has been around for a very long time.
Correct. This year we're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary, so it's a year-long celebration. So the Friday, the 27th of October, will be a social at the office. We're going to have an appreciation social, but throughout the year I have different events planned. I'm going to launch membership cards. I'm going to have an entire year of activities to recognize the 50th anniversary.
No, not all teachers are members of the union, right?
Correct. No, not all. When I became president, we had about 350. Since then, we should be close to 450 members. So we've grown in numbers. And I was asked, but when will you stop? I said, well, I won't stop until every single teacher is a member, because we need to have a stronger voice. And the more members you have, the stronger your impact. And I keep telling everyone, you know, a president is as strong as the membership. I can't be president without a membership, and I can't continue the work that has to be done without the support and confidence of the membership and the board of the Y2.
You know, when you became president of the Y2, I had you in this program. And I'm going to ask you again now, what is the biggest surprise now for you as president?
The biggest surprise is the ongoing challenges. There's challenges that have been going on for years, but most importantly, these challenges continue to be an issue because of our local politics. We want to play with the people's emotions. We want to not be truthful. And when you speak to certain stakeholders, they tend not to be proactive in addressing the issues. While I've been accused of instigating certain things, like for instance, at the beginning of the year, we had the 4 days where we sat out and we had our meetings in the morning. That was not because of the temperature being raised by me as president. That was because the temperature has been lowered for so long, and the members then gave me an a directive to say, well, Mr. Johnson, we've reached our breaking point.
Right.
And I go where the members lead me. That's an effective president. I can't go on my own. So even when we had the discussions back then with the Prime Minister, and the following day, the Thursday of that week, she had hoped that afternoon I would give the okay. I said, no, I have to speak to my members. So that Friday morning, again, we had our morning meeting to determine what would be the next course of action. And I say, you have to respect the Witu. You have to respect the teachers' wishes and their desires of what they see as a working environment in this 21st century and what should be given to them. We take for granted this profession. We remember it so well when it was COVID. We remember it now with the passage of Tropical Storm Hurricane Tammy, how school needed to reopen and everybody wondering what they're going to do with the kids. We remember them then, but we also need to remember them in their remuneration packages, the COLA, what should be given to them, the effect of this healthcare system that's going to have on them and the working class by extension, and where it will take this country if we make certain decisions without properly vetting it.
What about foundation-based education? Are there still issues with that?
There's several issues. As you know, with foundation-based education, it has not been properly evaluated as yet. Is the system working? We used to have students that used to be able to go to MAVO, and now we see the level is different. There's no middle road. It's either the students are very, very weak, or they're on an academic track to perform at Academy or the Mac High or St. Dominic High or those higher level academic schools. And we have to really take a serious look at our education system. It has to reflect what St. Martin's labor market needs, and also reflect some of the trades that we need in our society. We can make sure that our technical staff and students are prepared to take on the challenges of the workforce on St. Martin. Our hospitality sector needs a good strengthening as well, that we have trained persons in the field, and let students know that not because you're not academic that you can't even make more money than someone working in an office because you know a particular trade or a skill.
I've heard it so often. I've gone to the stage now where what you said there a while ago is very important, and I've heard it before many years. I've been doing television now over 40 years in St. Martin, and it hurts to see that we can never achieve the level of education we need that would match with this community.
Correct.
And I don't know why it's taking so long.
And same, with injustice, when are we going to see our own people in the courthouse more as judges and make sure that, even that aspect of making sure we prepare our people to take up those roles. We shouldn't have to fly in persons from left, right, and center to take up roles as simple as in a classroom, as simple as in a courtyard. Those are things that our education system should reflect. And so that is what we need to really look at. What is the education system, its vision, its structure, and how we can make sure that it reflects what St. Martin needs.
I know you're also concerned about the general health care plan that they have in place. I understand it's not going to be implemented in 2024 anymore.
Well, that is because of the intervention of the unions. Fact is, we had a confidential meeting because as a member of the CCSU, we are bound by the Civil Servants Chamber of Unions, which is unions representing civil servants. We had a meeting with the representatives, and it was quite clearly mentioned that, this is just a stop along the way. So after internalizing amongst colleagues and amongst the different unions, actually Witu was the one to break the silence to say, well, we are vehemently against this national health insurance and the structure which is being proposed. And then we went on national radio, we went with a press release I had, and then other unions, WICSU, PSU, and others have joined on, and we have co-signed with letters being submitted to the minister, 100+ letters, questions in a letter asking for clarification about this. And it wasn't until that intervention and the publicity around it and the signature drive with over 500 signatures was submitted, that now a different change in tone is coming, where it's being said, no, it's not January 1st, 2024 anymore. And yes, we want to include the unions, and what was being said by the unions is what needed to be considered. The tone has changed. Remember, we are in an election year, so anything is possible. And now certain unpopular decisions are being changed. And I still remain equally concerned, because my initial reaction was a few things with this national health insurance. One, the working class will pay more and receive less. That's my opinion based on what I've seen and the proposed 200 plus page legislation. Our medication that we received, the generic medication, that was also an issue for me. Now the tune is changing in terms of what is being expected. I was concerned about our most vulnerable persons who are allergic to the generic medication, our seniors. It's impossible that you have a senior on medication for 15, 20 years and then all of a sudden you change it to a generic brand. And again, to inform the population, a generic tablet is different. The tablet has a different coating. The way in which it's manufactured, how it's created is different. And whether they tell you it's the same or not, it's absolutely not the same. A generic tablet is totally different in terms of its makeup and composition. Besides that, I also had concern about preventative treatments, preventative care. Our population is growing in different aspects. So is our lifestyle. Where are the prevention in terms of a program for dietary information, access to dietitians, making sure that in our schools there's healthy feeding programs, making sure that our population is aware of healthy lifestyle choices. Because fact is, diabetes is on the rise in our country. High blood pressure is on the rise. All of these chronic diseases that can be prevented and reversed is on the rise. Fact is, I speak from experience. I am a type 2 diabetic, and I received that news about 2-3 years ago. And since then, I have made healthy, conscious decisions to change what I eat, change my eating habits, exercise regularly. And I went from having a secondary condition, which I've had all my life as a youngster, which was a rapid heartbeat. So I was on medication for that. And because of the lifestyle change and improving upon my lifestyle, I'm no longer on that heart medication. So I'm only better. I feel like I'm in my 20s. Yeah. And again, if I had known what I know now, I could have even prevented even more, probably the onset of being type 2 diabetic. And it's sometimes for some persons, it's taboo. It's we don't want to talk about it. But if I look at my school staff population, if I look at friends, the number of persons that are becoming diabetic and on denial, and there's no preventative care, because a person can be borderline for quite a period of time. But if our healthcare system that is going to be implemented doesn't reflect prevention and then long-term care, then what happens then? Same with medication. If a person, for instance, like type 2 diabetic, has to receive this medication for the rest of their life, why every 6 months do I have to sign a new contract or agreement has to be made with SZV? You're not going to come off of the medication, as much as you want to hope you minimize how much you're on. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility, and that is to make sure that a healthcare system reflects the needs of the population. To go further, there was also concern by the psychiatrists and the social workers in terms of their interpretation of the legislation, that healthcare, mental health care would have been an issue for them as well, that they would not have, for instance, the Mental Health Foundation would have closed, or its structure would have been different. Who would have been allowed to deal with those issues? And I don't think that the good minister or the advice given at the time was sufficient. So I think because of the role of unions, because of the intervention, because of the questions, because of the camaraderie between unions in addressing this issue, that's why the January 2024 date has been halted for now.
Have you heard anyone given their concern about this national health insurance plan, that it will attract all kinds of people to St. Martin?
Definitely, that is one of the main concerns as well. It's being said that the undocumented will help to sustain the system. Where are we going with that kind of thought? And then also part of the considerations is that for the first 12 months, if someone migrates to St. Martin, that they'd be paying into the fund, but will not be able to get the full benefits until that 1 year period passes. Then another consideration that has been mentioned is, for instance, if you want to opt out, that you can come out of the fund, but still you have to pay annually X amount. What does that X amount look like? So you're not opting out. You're not allowing me to come out of the fund. You're just basically still collecting. So then is the person still covered to a certain degree? So I don't think this has been properly vetted. And I know at one point in time, likely the minister wanted to put his name to it, like Obamacare and all sorts of things. So I think now it's called the Affordable Care Act or something now, the new name. So it went from general health insurance, I think under Minister Lee, to National Health Insurance, now to the Affordable Care Act is what I'm seeing now in publication. So
to the Otley Care.
To maybe Otley Care. So, it might be a nightmare. I don't know if it's care, but it could be a nightmare if we don't properly vet this and make sure it reflects the reality. And another concern is physicians. Physicians reached out to me and said, but we have not even been consulted with. No one has met with us as physicians on the island, as doctors, to say, well, this is what the program will entail. How we're being paid is also going to be changed. Many of the doctors told me. So, it's a concern for a lot of persons in the society. And, one would have thought that Parliament or representatives elected or appointed would have signaled the alarm. But again, it shows the strong role unions have and the need to have strong representation in unionism.
So you think it's dead for a few years?
I think it's dead at least for another couple of months, where it will peak its head up depending on the outcome of the election on January 11th. And that's where the people of St. Martin have to decide accordingly.
Well, in case you've just joined us, I'm Oral, this is Oral Gibbs Live, and we're on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. My guest is Mr. Stuart Johnson. Mr. Johnson is president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union. He held many positions. He was a minister of TIAT. He's currently also school manager. Man, you've done so many things, and you also was involved with the Carnival Development Foundation.
Correct, as president.
Yeah. How you feel about Carnival these days?
Well, my heart is always in Carnival, and now I'm in the backseat. I just enjoy the festivities. I enjoy the parade because for those who know my beloved mom, my late beloved mother, she was an avid Carnival lover as well. She used to produce the troops for the Sister Borgia Elementary School, as well as troops in Sabre and so on for Sabre Carnival in the summer. So because of her, I am in the parade in tribute of her. So since her passing, I am in the parade every year. So I'm more in the background. Sometimes I get pulled in. And when I was minister, I had my desire to get Carnival straightened out, which was the audit. That was very important. And still today, I think is very important. And it shows time and time again that certain decisions that were made was in line with what should have taken place.
Why do you think people are suspicious about the Carnival Development Foundation in terms of funds? Because we're hearing it more and more now that some people are enriching themselves, etc. And you just mentioned the audit, so that's why I asked that question.
Well, for me, it looks at the expenses. The hosting of Carnival is an expensive task. And over the years, if the funds and the support from government is not increased and the business community, that also offsets the annual operating cost of Carnival. And prior to becoming president of Carnival in 2011 and 2012, Carnival was also in a deficit at the time, over 100,000 plus. And at the time, it was the team, the board, and myself that made sure to get the outstanding funds, paid all of the outstanding debts. And, when Carnival continued, it didn't have such a huge deficit. The reason for the audit goes back to making sure that once everything is accounted for and structured properly, with government intervention and government being the largest sponsor, as I said when I was minister, making sure that there's a proper accountability. Fact is, there should be a position on the board for government. In terms of a representation, there should be more oversight from government. And why? It's because we're using the people's funds. And now, as an independent foundation, the foundation is not using government funds. So instead of government reaching across the aisle, so to speak, and making sure there's a strong bond to make sure that the event that is so economically benefiting for the country received the support, is properly structured, is properly manned, now there's a bigger divide. So I think it's important that persons understand that the hosting of Carnival is an expensive event, and to make sure that it's sound in terms of its records should be a priority for the foundation and the government as well.
There's more government subsidy?
As far as I was made to understand, they refused it for the previous Carnival that passed.
Oh, they refused it?
Apparently so, correct.
Oh, okay. You know, it's amazing. Carnival in St. Martin is huge. Right now, I think we probably number 1 and number 2 in the Caribbean.
It's huge. And whenever I go anywhere away, because the things that I'm very passionate about, I speak of. I was just recently in Barbados for a conference, and I even spoke about Carnival, and they can't imagine 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks long of festival. So when I shared the flyer that went out, again, they want to book. They're asking me on the WhatsApp which hotels to book. Persons want to come, and I think it goes back to making sure that it is properly marketed and supported, and that's why many initiatives was undertaken while I was minister back then.
It's amazing because now the entire Caribbean wants to come to St. Martin when there's Carnival.
Correct. And we don't realize the value we have in such a festival. And we have the enjoyment of 2 festivals. Because remember, the French side has theirs, we have ours. So if we do what we have to do as a destination, both sides coming together, we will be number 1. And to be very honest, I told friends of mine, I've had the opportunity to travel not only as minister, but even now so as president of the Witu and vice president of the Caribbean Teachers Association, the CUT. There's no place like St. Martin. Let me put it very diplomatic. There's no place like St. Martin in terms of culture, in terms of our diversity, in terms of what we offer as a country. And when you look around other places and what they have to live in, the standard of living, we are really number 1. And it could be so much better. But we have to make sure that we put the right people there that will guide the vision to the prosperity this island can truly have.
As I always say, this is the best place in the world.
Definitely.
So your friends in the Carnival Development Foundation, they ever call on you for any advice?
No, not really, but I do have a good relationship with them. So, they don't. I'm always there for support and have offered it if need be.
Okay, good. You was also Minister of TIAT. That's a big government ministry covering a whole host of government departments. You ever had a chance to really reflect back on your experience there?
Many times, and I have to admit, and many persons have admitted, that we were on the right track in the ministry when I was minister. Look at the airport. The airport was on track. When I was there, package 1 of the airport was completed. That was the roof restoration and moving out of the pavilion tents at the time. Right. I had many surprise visits to make sure that happened. And I can tell you, today would have been USP clearance at that airport. Today, many locals that have been dismissed at the airport would not have happened because indeed the airport was built by locals. And in a very strong press release that I sent back then, I was very strong of the belief that I don't think the airport needed to have any type of hostile takeover. Maybe the words was a bit sharp, but it still lives on today. That many vacancies have been filled, persons have come and went, but they have not been filled by locals. I think we need to fill those positions at the airport with locals. Locals built this country. Locals built, for instance, Winea. Locals built the airport. Locals built so much in our country. So it breaks my heart reflecting on what could have been at the airport, how long we have missed a good economic opportunity at the airport. And when I travel regionally, and we are losing our hub function, we are losing our footing in the region. Many airlines are going to different destinations in the region directly that would have come through St. Martin, and then they would have gone on regional carriers throughout the region. And we have to look at that. And I can tell you the key to that, which reports say so, which large tour operators, Apple Leisure Group sent a very strong endorsement, and all the airlines, they said at the time, Mr. Johnson, if USP clearance is on St. Martin, that is it for anywhere else in the region. We are going to have St. Martin as a priority. And persons played politics with it. They downplayed the importance of it. They talked about the costs. And I say very simply, like I said back then a few years, if everywhere has maintained it, and even Skip Hall wants it, and the Dominican Republic and other places want it, then it must be viable to have. And if Aruba hasn't given it up, then it must be, and my biggest scare is if our sister islands, one of our sister islands, St. Kitts or Antigua or someone pursues it and gets it over us, St. Martin will see what they have missed. And it's a golden opportunity.
I think a lot of people stir up fear in people's minds about this whole thing, about the cost that's involved. And I think most of those people, some were St. Martiners and also outsiders. Now, you mentioned something where I think we've built this island. All of a sudden, we're no longer
capable. Correct.
Crazy.
Correct. I don't understand that whatsoever. You know, and I even in the education world, I said, you know, I can't be king and queen in another man's country. We have to look out for our own people. And sometimes people take it sensitive in terms of, oh, but you don't want to include foreigners. Yes, indeed. If there is a need to bring in support in our labor force and our labor market, yes, but the priority must be those in your own land. That is a fair assessment.
So when you was minister, was there at that time also a push to have Skip Hall involved with the airport?
Absolutely not. Not at all in terms of that support.
Yeah.
You know, we had many discussions with the bondholders and support in terms of that, but that started to evolve more when I left as minister. And that's something that is still mind-boggling to me, because if you're going to give support, then give the right support. You know, is it just to pay high salaries and technocrats coming, or are you actually going to do something? And it's still left to be seen what the contributions have been of the CFOs that have come and went, and the sudden resignations. There must be a clear picture of what is happening at the airport, and that is still yet to be seen.
And they travel a lot. When you travel and come back in through St. Martin, how do you feel about the airport?
Well, I'm glad to be home, but besides that, again, it breaks my heart. What could be there now today, you know, the jet bridges that should be finalized by now, the terminal itself, the arrival and departure hall that should have been finished based on the timeline, the excessive amount of money that was secured, and again, even just leaving office, that the current government signed on to the same agreements that we were being criticized about to fund the airport, you know, again was a redemption in terms of what was really the track that we should have taken.
You know, being a minister of TIAT, such a huge portfolio, people don't realize the work involved.
It was 16-hour days, 14-hour days, and persons were, yeah, but he traveled here, he traveled there. But while traveling, work was being done. And when I would travel to, for instance, destinations, it was to sell St. Martin. At the time, we had a different agenda. We was just coming out of Irma. We had an economic downturn. So my message was going out to tell the world we are open for business. Yeah. And one of those ventures was, for instance, traveling to Antigua. When I was to travel to Antigua for the marine industry to bring back the mega yachts, the intention was that I would go as minister. As soon as Antigua heard that, they refused my entry.
Really?
Yeah, so luckily, with a cooperation from Port of Plaisance Marina, I was able to go under their guidance and support. So I went basically under the radar. We met with 30 of the captains with the marina. I had a speech. I addressed them. You know, you massage them to come back home. And they came back, they returned. And, you know, those are the things that happen behind the scenes that persons don't really know how much work goes into it. We also had a very strong bond with the French side. Our MOU that was signed with the French side is gone. It's missing. The French side is doing their own thing, which I applaud them for that. You know, you can't kill someone if they're taking their own initiative and doing what they have to do. But clearly the bond and the cohesion that was there is not there. There should have been joint activities. I see, for instance, our beloved Nicole de Weaver's initiative was sponsored from the French side tourist office, where it was our tourist office that used to sponsor it. Right. You know, so the question is, what is happening at the tourist office now? And I think that needs to be carefully looked at. Is there a guidance? Is there a vision? The management of the tourist office really needs to change in terms of its current direction, because certain things are not in line with what could be for St. Martin. We need to make sure that there's the right persons that are there, the right mix of persons, and that we attract the attention that St. Martin needs. Many persons don't know about St. Martin still out there, so we need to continue to sell that message to the wider world.
You know, I got to jump back to what you said about Antigua, because we are Antigua's biggest competitors in the marine yachting industry.
Correct.
and they blocked you.
Correct. I went to Monaco as well for the trade show there again, and all of those initiatives was not done in silos. What happened before I was minister, and one of the things that even persons and those stakeholders can testify is, I believe that St. Martin should go as one destination. The harbor shouldn't go by itself, the marina shouldn't go by itself, government shouldn't go by itself. It should be one big group as a destination. And when we come back home, we figure out the politics of it behind the scenes. But when we go, we sell St. Martin as one destination. That's what happened for 2 years. Now what is happening? You don't know what is happening in Tiat. Tiat, you have no clue what is happening in terms of the marketing of the destination. You don't know what's happening at the harbor. We also had plans for the harbor to extend Pier 2 to make sure that the berths of the cruise passenger vessels, the cruise ships, the larger ones can come. We had to also restore one of the piers because of the damage that was done. There was also a restoration plan and an overall improvement of the harbor facilities. Financially, is the harbor making what it should? No, it can make much more in terms of revenue. Same with the land next to the harbor, the EDC, which is very politicized, and persons are promised positions and salaries. That could have been a development. One of the ideas that I had in mind for there was a water park. Again, as a destination, as a Caribbean destination, we needed a water park, something tropical, something that tourists would come to on a hot day, enjoying the day in St. Martin. That was one of the considerations. And partnerships with the cruise lines. And next one was to restore the Fort Amsterdam. Carnival Cruise Line and many cruise lines pledged their support to restore. And how did the conversation come about? As a minister, I looked around our island and said, but you have been, I was very blunt with them. I went on a specific mission to Florida to speak to the FCCA, the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association. And I told them very bluntly, I said, Miss Page and team, you all have exploited St. Martin for the past 30 plus years, longer than I've been alive, probably. And I need more. I can't boast of a world-class port and airport if my people are suffering. That was the message I gave them. The answer at the time was, what do you need? We can sponsor school programs, we can sponsor roundabouts, we can sponsor tourist attractions. So that's where the conversation then started to restore the salt factory in Sucker Garden, to put Fort Amsterdam as a priority and bring back what was the core items that St. Martin had as a destination. But again, persons need a vision, they need a plan, they need to execute a plan, and not line their pocket for personal agenda.
Right. It looked like Michelle Page liked you because from the body language and in the photographs you took with us.
Correct. We had an excellent working relationship, indeed.
Well, in case you just joined us, I'm Oral. This is Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is Mr. Stuart Johnson. Mr. Johnson held so many positions. Incredible. When we come back, we're going to continue right here on Hot 99.9 FM radio station, Facebook, and YouTube with Mr. Stuart Johnson. Please stay with us.
Hey, don't guess about your insurance. Be sure that you're covered. Like with your car, like your home. Be sure to be covered in case of a fire, flood, hurricane, or some other natural disaster. And travel insurance, because you never know what could happen when you're on vacation. You could lose your passport, your luggage, or have an accident. So be sure that you're covered.
Insure yourself fast and easy with Be Sure from the Windward Islands Bank Limited. Visit your preferred WIB branch, WIB Insurance Services, or BeSureStMartin.com. Get your Be Sure insurance at the Windward Islands Bank, your partners in progress.
For real? Somebody came in here and steal my curtains? Well, it's a good thing I'm insured with Be Sure, because even the contents of my apartment are covered. Don't play guessing games with your insurance. Be sure.
Are you be sure? Be sure.
My guest on Oral Gibbs Live is Mr. Stuart Johnson. You're either listening to us or you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or on radio, Hot 99.9 FM radio. My guest again is Mr. Stuart Johnson. Mr. Johnson is a school manager. He's president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union, a former minister of TIAD, a former president of the St. Martin Carnival Development Foundation. What else you have? You did everything.
Vice president of the Caribbean Union of Teachers. Is a long list.
Right. That's always nice having you here. I know the Windward Islands Teachers Union. I have been interviewing president of that union for some 40 years now. It seems like, I might be wrong here, but it's always the impression that the government don't really respect the union.
No, and why I say that,
correct, or-
I think that's a fair assessment. And why I say that is because I have a different approach. I came with making sure that the right channels of communication is there. Document letters, document concerns. And I've said many times to government, let us sit to the table and address these issues before they become a big issue. Let us be proactive. And at times it's downplayed. So one of the many considerations going forward is, for instance, the current state of our schools. I've asked and provided full documentation based on a bottom-up approach, based on the concerns of the members itself. We documented what each school challenge is, especially in public education, where the government has the direct responsibility, the Minister of Education has the responsibility as the competent authority to address. What I also did differently is I looked at the salaries of teachers. I said, once a teacher reaches their maximum salary scale step, which is 20 based on the current structure, there's no more mobility. That person is stuck forever. So what I proposed through the CCSU is downward mobility. So now the salary scales have been proposed to be extended from step 20 to 25 and possibly down to 30. So 10 additional steps. So that allows for more flexibility in terms of working in the profession. It encourages persons to continue incentivized. So that proposal was accepted in the CCSU. It is now somewhere within government and we're discussing it back and forth. Same with the vacation allowance. As president of the Witu, I championed in just these 2 years for an increase in the vacation allowance. The consideration still is ongoing in terms of that increase, whether it will look like 7% or the ultimate goal of reaching to 8% very soon. So that is still ongoing with government. And then the last issue, the three top main issues, is the COLA, the cost of living adjustment that has not been paid since 2012. So again, another inherited issue. And finally, now the discussion is to look at what is outstanding and kind of figure out how it's going to be paid, which is about 8% that is outstanding, plus the current amounts that have to continue. Because if I look at the possible increase of over 1% in premium for this new healthcare plan, if I look at the rising costs nationally of goods and services, of utilities, then something have to offset that. Right. So if you give the incentives that are there, then the working class is no longer shoved deeper into poverty, but gives some sort of relief. And I think those are the core issues that as a Y2 president, I have been championing. And as I mentioned before, I am considering and have considered to go up for another 3-year term. So that'll happen early next year. So you're getting the exclusive of that I'm looking at. I'm continuing on the progress that has been made.
The cost of living adjustment, that's a touchy one.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Government don't have money right now.
They have money for what they want. They have money for what they want. So if we minimize first class tickets and we minimize all sorts of things, if we look at the dollars and cents that have to be paid out, the little 2,000 or 3,000 guilders per person, it equals, it pales in comparison from what I see wasted in so much other things.
So what has been your impression, when you look at education and you look at parents' involvement, because government pays for teachers' salaries, right?
Correct.
But then understand the school fee. What about the school fee? Is that still the same or has that increased over the years?
Well, I think we need to look at the structure in terms of how schools are funded. Schools are left with no other choice but to come up with alternative means of funding because of costs to operate, because of expectations, whether it's in IT, whether it's in utility costs. And for instance, the rate in which the utility company, GEBE, calculates an education institution could be reduced. There could be considerations for that. If you do it for one place, you can do it for another. Is it the same for Maho in terms of other locations, in terms of what is calculated for the electricity rate? Are you going to be flexible in that? But I think those are higher end discussions that need to be had. If a school is getting a bill of 6,000 or 7,000 guilders per month for utilities, is that really sustainable? Where back in the day, it used to be like 1,500 guilders. Where are we going in terms of operating costs? So then schools, especially non-governmental schools, have to source that money from somewhere. So they either come up with, if they can't call it a school fee, they come up with a book fee. They come up with all sorts of fundraisings because, again, the demand to keep schools on a certain caliber requires funding. So I think school boards, the finance ministry, the Ministry of Education need to have a real sit down to look at how schools are funded and to increase that funding with more oversight and control.
But the government is paying the salaries of also the private schools.
Correct, of subsidized schools,
Right.
correct.
So when it comes to schools like the school
The
where you're
public
school
schools,
manager,
correct.
public school, what kind of school fees involved there?
Well, by us, there's no school fee.
No school fee at
It's
all.
parents are opted to have a contribution if they would like to, but that's an open end. There's nothing mandated or forced.
So no school fee
No
there
school
at all.
fee
I
whatsoever.
wanted to establish that because
No school fee in public
Yeah,
schools, correct.
And now the other schools, the Catholic schools, etc.,
They
there's
have
no school fee.
fees
at
or
those.
book fees. Some of the high schools have as high as 900 guilders or more in book
I was
fees.
shocked when I heard that
Me
the other
too.
day. Wow.
I was shocked as well, the high amount. Again, that needs to be a conversation, that needs to be a conversation. Why is it that high? I'm an advocate for technology. And, I know you love technology as well, Mr. Gibbs. So, would it be cheaper to get our students ebooks and make sure that there's current editions? Because with an ebook, the edition changes so quickly from one year to the next. You can get,
Exactly.
Correct. So I think that is the direction we need to go in, making sure that we modernize our education system while making sure that students get the right resources that they need at the same time and not this exorbitant cost that is being forced on parents to pay as well.
I remember when you was in the teachers training program, I had you in the program too, we spoke
Correct.
about it. And at the time, there was this whole concern that we had very few men in the teaching profession.
Still the same.
Still the same.
Still the same. There's very few men. And again, it goes back to what I said all the way back then, which is now 15 years ago, is we need to incentivize education. We need to make education attractive. Like we have election coming up, why not have a nice billboard? Become a teacher today with prominent local faces, attracting persons to sign up for the profession. Go to career fairs at the high school. Talk about why it's important to become a teacher and give that extra push. And I think that is important. Make sure that if you study in education, that it's a full scholarship, not a partial grant or a scholarship. Let it be that, if you study education, it's fully paid for and covered, and you work for 5-10 years at least in the profession, because we have several that did the program and didn't work in the classroom either. So, there also has to be that control mechanism in place.
I was speaking to a few potential teachers, and they all said to me they're afraid of the parents. They said because the parents come to school only when they perceive there's a problem. They don't come to school to find out how well the child is doing. But if the child go home and say, well, the teacher said this, that, then they come in like a hurricane.
And that's why it's important to have strong leadership. Once you have strong leadership to be the mediator and to give a fair assessment and to back up your teachers, no potential teacher should be fearful of that. At the end of the day, I tell my staff, even if we disagree, that must be in-house. That must be amongst each other. But when we face parents or students, that respect must be given on all sides, and we deal with whatever is in front of us.
The other thing is, and I think I told this to you years ago, I received a phone call one time because I was out there pushing for the teachers, man. The person called me and said, "Oh, let me tell you something." He said, "Teachers are well paid. Why are you wasting your time fighting over the salary?" And the response is not true.
It's absolutely not. I know teachers, for instance, working in the profession longer than I am and making an average of 3,000 guilders net take home.
Wow.
If you look at rent, $800. If you look at going to the supermarket, God forbid you have a loan for a car, you can't survive. God forbid you have 2 children or a child in particular. How do you survive? And my question is, I'm a single person with a principal salary, which is a little bit more than the rest. And, I'm making it. So imagine if others, have that lower part of the salary. And again, school managers don't make that astronomical amount. You're looking nothing, a couple hundred guilders more than some seasoned teachers. So again, we really have to be mindful of that. When I started to be a teacher, I can be very blunt, my salary was only 2,500 guilders. Again, is that really something somebody wants to study 4 years for and jump into? So the salaries have improved from what it used to be. But at the back end of it, the cost of living and wanting to be on your own to survive and build a family also too has to be considered, And you go to a bank for a mortgage, they basically ask you, but who's your partner? You're married? And then they basically get this look like, okay, you come here alone, don't bother come, And society, the banking world, the financial world also have to be reflective of the times and incentivize that part. And I've also said many times, even while in government, why don't we build houses or a complex for the working class? We always look at the less fortunate, we always look at the rich, but what about the middle person, the middle class? And that is important to also consider, those teachers or those in the banking world or those professionals, they need a place too. And if we're going to look at housing, then let that be a priority now for the next vision.
I'll tell you one thing, a lot of young people tell me their biggest concern is that they won't be able to afford a home.
Correct.
Purchase a property.
Correct. That is correct. And that's unacceptable in my opinion. That's something that should be a priority going forward. And again, it shouldn't be that we can afford $40,000 Jeeps and we can't get a piece of land or a nice apartment in a nice apartment complex specifically for professionals.
It's quite interesting. When I had my first mortgage back in 1991, interest rate was 14%. Today, interest rate is much lower than that, and it's still difficult for people to make it.
But then again, persons had two jobs. The cost. You go to the supermarket back then, $100 could fill a basket. Now $100, the bag is so light that it goes up in the air like a balloon filled with helium. I went to the supermarket just the other day. I picked up 3 or 4 items and it was like $60. And I looked in the bag. I looked at the lady. She said, "Boy, Johnson, it's tough. I up to now, I don't know what I brought back home." and many persons face that. And teachers in particular. I had a member that was by me just last week, and we deal with many cases one-on-one. There's many cases. A whole program would be on cases if I was to give you examples. And she said, Mr. Johnson, my salary finished. And this is a teacher that's been working 15 years with a salary range that I just mentioned. My salary is finished. I can't wait till payday to get to the bank to put some gas and continue till the next month. That is unacceptable. And I'm like, but these are persons that even taught me in a classroom. And if I didn't get this opportunity to become a school manager, I probably would have considered leaving as well. I don't know how persons make it.
A lot of people are telling me that now that when they get their salary, 5 days after they're broke.
Correct. And that's why I said, even when we're going through the COVID measures, I said, even as union leader, persons don't realize if the vacation money is not paid, that is accumulation for what is expected throughout the year. So they've budgeted to either pay their house insurance, either cover uniform costs for the next school year. Vacation allowance does not take them on a vacation anymore. Those are things of the past. Because if you have uniforms that cost $30 for a polo shirt and $35 or $40 for a pants or a skirt, $20 or $25 for the gym shirt, at the end of the day, it adds up. I know because I had to support my own family, and I know that bill added up quite quickly. So I know what it is firsthand as well.
So what is the government saying about the vacation allowance?
Well, the vacation allowance was paid, which was the one this year, again, because of the intervention of unions, of Witu in particular. We had submitted a petition, the measures was lifted.
Anything retroactive that have to be?
No, and from what I recollect from one of the recent parliamentary meetings that was had in the past, I believe one of the members of parliament said, but that should be our decision. There should be an addendum, there should be an amendment to make that provision for the outstanding. My question is, why haven't you done that? Why isn't it not done by somebody in parliament? But again, until it becomes an issue or somebody picks it up or it gets enough political mileage, it won't be considered because other things are taking precedence now.
When you look at the island, as a young man, you're not even 40 years yet, how you feel? I mean, you drive around St. Martin, you see, it's a beautiful island.
We are very beautiful.
There's a lot of growth,
a lot of
construction,
potential.
all kind of things going on.
But not for our people.
Okay.
Not for our people. Like I said, we should be building apartment complexes or housing for our people, young professionals that can qualify to get these opportunities, because at the end of the day, when everybody picks up and leaves, we have to stay here in our country to continue whatever is left of it. We saw many examples of it. After Hurricane Lewis, persons up and left, they never returned. We picked up the pieces then. Irma, some persons left their car by the airport with keys in it. They just left. They never came back. Many persons left and never returned. The core group, the young persons that are growing up in this country, instead of getting them to leave or not encouraging them to leave and come back, we need to put things in place such as housing and making sure that there is opportunity for them to grow in their own country.
What is so sad, though, is that speaking with a lot of young people, they've lost all hope. And if you lose that, then it's a problem.
You know, and on a constant basis, I even have to encourage close friends. You know, they're like, yeah, but I want to change the profession. I said, but you just got to increase from being a teacher now to someone in the management team. You know, continue. But again, many persons, like you said, the morale, and I've expressed this so many times within different discussions, we have to boost the working morale of the teaching profession. We have to make it valuable again, that a teacher is seen as an asset. And like you said, not where parents come in and criticize and be like, oh, but how come you shout at my child? If I recollect what all was done to me with wooden ruler, pulling air, you know, back then, you know, yeah, I don't think I turned out that bad, but we're not allowed to do those things. But what we do ask of parents is to have that open communication with the school, and also be willing to cooperate with whatever steps we put in place to address whatever concern is there.
How do you feel about that language issue that's been on the burner for now for 40 years? Dutch versus English in the classroom.
Well, you know, I am a school manager of a dual instruction school. So one section is Dutch and one section is English. What is my personal belief? I think it's a choice to be had. I think we need to be strong in knowing Dutch, yes, but I think it should not prevent anyone from expressing themselves if they don't know Dutch. Every single document from government should be in English. It should not be selective documents sent in English, and when you want to be in a lead group or alienate whatever that content is, you push it in Dutch. No. Everything should be in English. Fact is, St. Martin is an English-speaking island, and so persons should not feel ashamed if they get a government document and they can't read it in Dutch. It should be in English and in Dutch as well, because again, we hold a Dutch passport. We have to respect that. But at the end of the day, I think every document should be in English for everyone in St. Martin to know what's going on.
But the St. Martin Constitution states there are two languages.
Correct. Like English and Dutch. Correct.
So they should start to do that.
I agree.
Yeah.
It should just be put in practice. It should not be another study. It should not be another contract or consultancy given to someone to figure it out. It's very simple. Like, you can produce other documents in English. You can produce all of the legislation, everything in English as well. Same like the healthcare proposal that is submitted in Dutch. So 260-something pages, 50-something pages, you know, you go through and you ask yourself, but why should this be presented in Dutch if it's reflective of everybody? It should be in English. But again, some of us are smart enough to decipher through it, and we are making sure to inform the public of what we think are the highlights that they need to know about, even in such legislations.
Well, no, they use the language to
alienate, to make it, to sensitize a certain group, which is not fair.
Unfortunate,
Yeah.
So, what's next? You're gonna run for office again?
No, I'm not running this election, and because I think as union president, it's important to make sure that gets its full attention, and make sure that even the work that I do in the region, because I mentioned I'm third vice president of the Caribbean Union of Teachers. Right. So what is that? I'm responsible for sports in the region. I'm responsible for culture in the region. I'm responsible for social well-being, so emotional outreach for teachers as well. So that comes with a large responsibility in itself. I know just at the beginning of the year, around April, I hosted a cricket tournament in Trinidad.
Really? Yeah.
And one person said, but Johnson, what do you know about cricket and why are you in Trinidad? So it shows the outreach that Witu has now more than ever. And it also sharpens my skills, because now I know about, the T20 rules, and I know all about cricket now. So again, it's a good learning curve for me as well. And actually, just this month, I'm outlining the next year and a half of events that I will have to plan with my committee for the Caribbean teachers as well. So because of my position as Witu president and our representation there, I received that support and confidence to serve regionally as well.
All right. So, I mean, so you've done so many things in such a short period of time. It's great.
Correct. And I had the opportunity in June to travel to Geneva, Switzerland, as part of the delegation from St. Martin. Why did I go? I represented the workers in Convention 87. That convention speaks of the right to organize, the right for an association. So all of those we mentioned in the ILO, the International Labour Organization Convention. So it's important that even internationally, there is a strong voice. The delegation from the Netherlands and many other delegations, they applauded me for it in terms of the deliverance of the speech, of what we presented, and that even the government shouldn't have allowed this to be taken that far, because indeed it's an embarrassment for the government, it's an embarrassment for the minister, that the workers and the employers had to champion this issue on an international level in ILO. So that is something that also too was championed and shows that work is being done on all fronts.
Well, Mr. Johnson, I want to thank you for coming in. You're currently president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union, school manager. Want to wish you much success. Anything else you'd like to add in closing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbs. Thank you always for having me on this program. I want to continue to wish you much success in your endeavors, both on online broadcasts and now on radio. It's an excellent program that continues to show the value to have quality programming on St. Martin, and I wish you nothing but continued success.
And again, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for your support. All right? And that's it for now. See you next time on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Take care. Bye.